Clint Didier is afraid the EPA is going to force him out of business. The former Super Bowl winner, Senate candidate, and now farmer, says the EPA is close to adding more regulations that could force him to shut down his farm. EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson wants to create these buffer zones around waterways to protect them from pesticides, and the EPA wants to take land away from the farmers to do it. So isn't there a better way that could please both sides? Clint Didier is here to score it all for us. So, Clint, how did all this start?
Well, we had an article in the paper the other day, David, that stated the fact that the National Marine Fisheries Service, which is part of NOAA, that's directly linked to EPA, wants to put 500-foot buffers on all the waterways in the state of Washington for pesticide-herbicide application. They're not going to take the land away. They're just not going to allow us to farm the land. And if they do that, 61% of our ground will be out of production in the state of Washington. And if they do that, 61% of our ground will be out of production in the state of Washington. We cannot manage a farm when they take that much of our land away from use.
Did they ask you about it before they imposed this new reg?
No, they did not. And our own Department of Agriculture here in the state of Washington has done an exclusive study for the last 6 years. They have studied 6 of the highest areas in our state from farming for the water returning back to the river, and they have found no residue of any pesticide, herbicide, fungicide, or anything going back to the river. And they won't use this. The National Marine Fisheries Service will not use this documentation because it's not their scientific documentation.
You know what this sounds like, Clint? It sounds a lot like what's happening with Texas, where the local officials in Texas came to one decision about various EPA regs, and the folks inside the Beltway, thousands of miles away, came to another decision, and the Beltway folks get their way.
Well, let me tell you right now, it's happening in Michigan. It's happening in states across the country. I read about it in the Capitol Press. We farmers, us farmers of the United States of America, we're feeling threatened. We're wounded. We're backed against the corner. And the only way out of this is to go through these agencies. We'll go through these agencies. Let me tell you right now, in our area right here in the Columbia Basin, we will not go down without a fight. If they want to fight, we're ready.
But how do you do it, Clint? I mean, as much as I understand your reasons for it, and I encourage you to fight for your rights as this thing goes, but doesn't federal law trump state law all the time?
This is not federal law. These are agencies that are using the courts and a judge by the name of John Cooner in Seattle to implement their agenda. These are not federal laws.
That's the key. It's not, I misspoke. It's not a law. It's a regulation put forth by one branch of government. And we are supposed to have equal and separate branches of government. And we are a federalist society. So, I mean, the states are supposed to have rights. What is your recourse now? Where do you go? What do you do?
States' rights supersede the federal government, by the way, too. But let's put that into check, too, according to our Constitution. And that's the thing. I'm glad to see they finally read it. What do? We get people active across the nation. Start calling your congressmen and senators. Tell them no way on these buffer zones. Until there is official documentation, scientific documentation, that shows that we're hurting. We've had 2 of the biggest runs of salmon in historic history that have ever come back to the Columbia River. The runs are increasing, and they're not even really addressing, if there was a problem, the true problems. The Caspian terns, the mammals, the 1972 Marine Mammal Act that protects seals and sea lions that are now overpopulated to the point they can't keep them off the docks in San Francisco.
Right.
There are so many other things.
And you put your finger on it earlier, Clint, which is the fact that you folks care much more about the environment that you live in than the folks thousands of miles